Today, I want to talk about agentic commerce. It's a topic I think that's been coming up quite a lot lately. I've linked to an article as part of this from our CMO at Tinuiti, Dalton, who I think has some really interesting thoughts on this. So just, I guess before we dive in, I'm going to make an admission, and that is when I first started to think about the role of agents in our lives, AI-driven chatbots, virtual assistants, but even going beyond that, right? Like the true agentic utility of essentially taking functions that I perform for myself or decisions that I make. I think that's the most critical part. Decisions that I make, taking those aspects and doing them for me without any kind of intervention. I was a bit worried about that. I just didn't see that being something that humans would really accept. I think the idea of human autonomy is something that we are going to be thinking about quite a lot in the future in terms of this man versus machine moment. But I think it's also important to think about that quote from Paul Krugman, the Nobel-winning economist. This was back in 1998 even, when he famously said, by 2005 or so, it will become clear that the internet's impact on the economy has been no greater than fax machines. And that is obviously completely wrong. It's very easy though to look back in history and go, well, it was obvious that this thing was going to happen, right? I think there is an inherent human desire to express this degree of skepticism. And in part, it's because the core utility of that function hasn't been created yet, right? Like the reason why he was thinking this is because he was thinking about it purely as a human-to-human connection medium. He said, humans just don't have enough to say to each other. This is well before the rise of social networks. This is well before the rise of entertainment being delivered through these mediums. I think it missed the mark in part not because it didn't. It was really grounded in the reality of what were the norms at that moment in time and how would people interact, how would they connect. But today we're living through another massive moment of transformation, and at the center of it is what we are calling agentic commerce. So these intelligent agents are not just used for things like customer service or making shopping more convenient, but they are, I think, going to very fundamentally change the way that businesses operate. So there is this way that AI is empowering companies to anticipate consumer needs, to personalize experiences at scale, and to close the gap between the discovery and the purchase in ways that were unimaginable even a few years ago. One thing I've been thinking about recently is tied to, actually it was GDPR. GDPR has this really interesting provision associated with data portability. So one of the rules there is a user must have the ability to port their data. Now that doesn't just mean their IDs that are being sold by a company, but also the behavioral data. And I've often thought about this, I call it the Pizza Hut scenario. And the Pizza Hut scenario is, if I'm Domino's Pizza, I would love to know what a loyal Pizza Hut enthusiast is ordering at their restaurant. I would love to know what they're ordering. I would love to know what they're paying for those pizzas. How price sensitive are they? I would love to know the frequency of orders, and I'd love to know all the different locations they're ordering from. Maybe they have a cabin, they go somewhere on the weekends. The point is, there's a lot of really interesting behavioral information that could be gleaned if you have access to that. And that was actually a provision under GDPR that I thought is a very interesting opportunity for brands to utilize that data in a way that is advantageous to the consumer. And I think this is where what I really want to hone in on is, I don't think the infrastructure exists today that agentic commerce makes a ton of sense in the modern era. And this is why I think we're a little dismissive of it, is there is this intermediary. There's something that needs to exist in the middle. And I think what that is a preference management solution, right? This idea that when I think about monetizing my data, I don't just think about it in terms of email, going somewhere. It's available. What matters is the context that's stored with that email. And if you've ever looked at like your Google profile, what they think you're into, some of it's good, some of it's not as good. And there's all these preferences that we come up with or that we think about on an ongoing basis. And I think, those evolve over time. A lot of them are predicated on what brands that we're being exposed to, what experience, what samples we're being exposed to. I think what we will see here is the formation of intermediary networks, and we may already see them. Those receipt aggregation companies like Fetch, right? What they are doing is they are storing your transactional data along with your transactional history, And they're able to use that to better understand what your preferences are and to better predict what your preferences are. So in the future, when I speak to an agent, I go, I'm organizing a pizza party for 5 people, help me out. Well, it already knows I have a preference for pepperoni pizza. It knows that I have a vegetarian in my family. These are the types of decisions that can be enabled when you are feeding those preferences in. But herein lies the rub. There's the haves and the have-nots. There's the Amazons of the world, there's the Googles of the world, and then there's the individual retailers. And this is where I think consumers will start to become a lot more savvy and why this intermediary layer is going to exist, right? The preference, or they'll even be framed as privacy aggregation solutions. They will sit in the middle as a way to protect your data from everybody else, and you can choose who can access that data. And I think we'll see that there's a degree of calibration associated with this, maybe similar to a TikTok, or not TikTok, a Tinder. I never use the dating apps. I fortunately met my wife in real life right before they fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know. I didn't get that type of exposure, but the point of all this is there's a really interesting opportunity there to showcase preference. And if it's a this or that type of model where a consumer can be providing that information, not too dissimilar from what we see with Google surveys or various other scenarios where preferences are being collected, but the ability to centralize that and then share that with certain vendors for certain either promotions, recommendations, or more than anything, convenience. I think that is where this will really come to shine. So that's why I am bullish on solutions like Amazon's Rufus, but I'm also a bit bearish because it doesn't know a lot of the things I don't buy on Amazon. It doesn't know about the party venue that I'm booking. It doesn't know about my son's preference for Paw Patrol, because we buy all that at Walmart when we go there in person. It is only one side of me. And so when you have a silo of preferences or a short-term or a limited view of preferences, it is hard to have an agentic solution make decisions for you. And I think that is maybe where this is concerning, because I see the products that are recommended to me and I don't want to buy those. I'm not interested in them. But it's only because they have a partial worldview. So I put this out there as a moment in time, is that if you are bearish on agentic commerce and you're going, I just don't see it, I would challenge you to think really hard about what the ecosystem around this starts to look like. And what does that mean for marketing? I don't think it inherently means the end of bottom of the funnel marketing. I think that there's a fundamental lead there, but I do think that it means that brand awareness and brand preference is going to be a more critical component of advertising. And it is obviously a critical component today, but oftentimes after the bottom of the funnel demand has been captured. And I don't think that's the right recipe for the future. I think the recipe for the future is one that is really predicated on how do we enable preferences to be determined early? How do we get those signals into these preference storage mechanisms, or these privacy vehicles, as they'll probably be called from a PR perspective and also from a utility perspective? How do we empower those platforms to then empower the agents to make decisions without us? Because I would love not to have to plan my son's birthday party. That is what we're doing right now, and it is a lot. It is a headache. We've had to go buy all kinds of things. I would love if someone could do that for me. Anyway, this is a very, very broad thought. Let me know your thoughts. Read this article from Dalton. I think she brings up some really interesting ideas like preferential awareness. How's that going to work? And we'd just love to hear from you, because this is very much, honestly, a bit of a tinfoil hat moment, but I'd love to look back on this in a few years and see how right or how wrong we were in this prediction. So let us know what you think.